I was giving him a bath, and Nat came home and noticed that while I was changing him, that his stomach was bigger than and his legs and arms were pretty skinny. So we went to the pediatrician the following day. She said it might be gas, so they had us do an ultrasound. The ultrasound results came back saying that there was a problem with one of his kidneys. So we went to go see a urologist who said that he was only born with one kidney, which is pretty normal. A lot of people survive on one kidneys, and then we went home thinking
that everything was fine.
In general, there's about 17,000 people on the liver transplant waiting list. There's about 100,000 overall on the waiting list, of which about 75,000 are waiting for a kidney transplant. Per year, about 10% of the list dies.
We took him to his office in Chicago, and he started feeling around his stomach, and then he got up, picked up a book out of his shelf, and started to show us what was wrong with it. He said there's something wrong with his liver. He doesn't know what, but it seems like it's larger than he felt. He started feeling around. Then we were given the bad news that he needed a transplant. And we didn't know what that meant. All we could imagine in our minds was that, you know, our son is going to be a vegetable all his life in a wheelchair, and we didn't know what they meant by a transplant. All you picture in your mind is a child that's going to be disabled for the rest of life. So we didn't know if we wanted to do a transplant. So then the doctors wanted us to meet this little girl that was all over the news, and we didn't know anything about her. He said, this is what a transplant patient looks like after they had the transplant. It was just a normal little girl playing around, and I think that sealed our decision to make a transplant, to go and have and agree to have
to get tested.
To get tested, to see if we could donate any of our livers, and Maysoon was a successful winner of that contest.
You noticed a big difference once the transplant happened. He slept more. He was in the hospital for about a month, and then he went home. The recovery went really well.
Nobody would insure us because of the pre-existing conditions that Ibby had. Ibrahim became hospitalized, and he became very ill, and it was determined that he may even need another transplant. So, and then to top it off, bankers said, oh, we're not covering this.
In January of '96, he was placed on the transplant list for the second transplant. We received a phone call early in the morning saying that they think they have a match. So we went down to the hospital. They did some testing. They said that the liver is a match. When he came out of surgery,
you could see this big white thing around his stomach and skin around it. It's devastating when you saw that. I said, what do we do? Why do we do this? Why do we go to this surgery? Why do we have to put him through all this? And it became very emotional for us. We didn't think he was going to make it at that time. You know, still, you see your son like that in pieces, basically. It's very hard to accept.
They did a biopsy. They said that he had severe rejection.
We heard a big thump, and ran to his room, and he had fell off out of his bed. He was shaking. He was having convulsions. He went into a seizure. Scared the heck out of us. We didn't know what was happening. At the University of Chicago, and they had him airlifted on a helicopter from Christ Hospital to University of Chicago, where they treated him.
Rejection wasn't going away. They wanted to put him on the waiting list for a third transplant. And Ibrahim didn't really know what was going on at that time. All he knew was that his birthday was the following week. He was turning 5, but that's all he pretty much cared about. He didn't know what was going on, what the doctors were saying. I was upset at the time, thinking that everything we've done the past few years, we're back to square one. So I told the doctors that I just wanted him discharged. I'm going to go home, celebrate his 5th birthday, and make a decision after that.
So then we came back after his birthday, met with the doctors, the staff, the hospital staff, and we told them that we can't keep doing this. This is tearing us apart, and it seems like it's not working all the time, and we don't want to put our son through this all the time. And the doctor said that it doesn't matter if it's the first transplant, second, third, fourth, the risk is the same all around. And that's what how we made our decision. It wasn't the fear of losing him that was hurting us the most. It was just watching him suffer so much that hurt us. I think that hurt us more. And we just wanted to come to closure. We basically see him in the hospital. He's always unconscious or under medication, so it was hard to communicate with him.
May of '97, he started to get worse. He became jaundiced. I took him to the doctor. They did some testing. They noticed that one of his medications had caused lymphoma. But they said the first thing they needed to do was take him off all his medications, which means that his liver isn't functioning well now, and taking him off, they didn't know what was going to happen with them taking him off his immunosuppressant, which basically means that his body knows that that's not the original liver. He ended up getting hospitalized the end of July, July 31st. So they admitted him to the ICU. They said his potassium level was low, all his electrolytes were off. So they hooked him up to machines. And one time, because he was so delirious, not knowing what was going on, he was asking the nurses to bring him food, even though he was hooked up and he was in and out of consciousness. He was on the waiting list for about 19 days, waiting for a liver. They ended up doing procedures every night. The day before his transplant, I had gone home about midnight, called my father, who was overseas, and explained to him what was going on. Him and my aunt said that they were going to go pray at the mosque. The next morning when I went to the hospital, they had said that they found a donor. They took him into the surgery for the third transplant.
He became infected almost immediately, and so he never left the hospital between the third and the fourth transplant. In October 1997, after having his fourth liver transplant, we go visit him in the hospital. We noticed he's actually looking much better.
I am Ibrahim Haleem. I'm 18-year-old senior in high school right now. I am a 4-time survivor of a liver transplant, and this is the story of how the people around me saved my life.